Well, coasters, I'm at the All Saints Anglican Church in Hokitika, historic building, and the Reverend Vivian Habour has offered to show me around inside. They're fundraising at the present to replace the roof, but she's got some interesting stories. And folks, this is inside the church, and there she is, the Reverend Vivian Habour, a very, very well-known lady in Westland. Yeah, Vivian, thanks so much for taking the time to have a chat to me. Now, there's a lot of things in the church here that...
Oh, it's filled with all kinds of little things to remind us of who we are, but it's also filled with memorials, and some of them quite quirky and interesting that we've really only found out about in the last 10 or so years.
So what are we talking about?
Well, let me go and show you about this one. Are you able to film this?
Yes, I can, yeah.
You will see that it has these men who gave their lives in the Great War, and was erected by the All Saints Institute, which was a debating society. And this man here, Rogerson, his name can't be found in any of the New Zealand records of those who died in the Great War. And we just hunted high and low until it turned out that he was a young man who came to Hokitika at the turn of the century to work in a brewery. And he joined the Congregation of All Saints and became a member of the Debating Society. And when it was apparent that a war would break out, he returned to England, joined up with probably his mates from school, and sadly died. And the news came to South Africa, and consequently we had his name was included in this memorial, so that the local people would remember him as well. So we have no idea if there's a memorial for him in England anywhere, but it's just this quirky little story of something here. And this is what I mean about it. It carries, a church like this carries the stories of the community. And that's a great one.
Gosh, there's some really prominent Westland names there. Andrews, Woolhouse, right. Rogerson, gosh.
Yeah, so there they are. Of course, there is a memorial book with all the names of those who died in the First World War anyway, but we won't go into that because this
is a war memorial.
It's a war memorial church,
isn't it? That's quite unusual.
It was well, not really. St Andrews is as well.
Okay.
But I think that there was, because of the kind of church the Anglican Church is, more was put into it, so it kind of carries a record, a tangible record.
It's like a Mariah in many ways, where the stories are told.
I'm sure that would be a very good description, yeah. So, shall I show you some other things?
Please do.
Let's go up into the sanctuary, or maybe just on the way, I'll just point out these rails, which separated the choir from the congregation, from the nave, and you'll see that this one is in memory of Amelia Dow. And on that side, which I think might be difficult to photograph, her husband, and those are the Dowells, who still live in this town. And
a very pioneer family.
Oh yes, he came here, I believe, I might be getting this wrong, but he came here from the other goldfields, having made something, but he didn't want to mine, and he got into being haulage and cartier. And so they were a well-established family in the economy of the area.
And that's carved into the side there.
And it's here.
Isn't that fantastic?
Beautifully carved. If you can get the detail there, a lot of this is carved local fauna and flora.
Wow. Right. And then Amelia's name there.
And there she is. And it's just this lovely thing of there she is, but we don't necessarily notice her every day. But, you know, every now and then one does notice Amelia, and you think, what did that pioneer woman contribute to the beginning of this little town? Let's go up into the sanctuary, because that's filled with things. Again, a carving that people just simply don't notice, of these lovely little faces of angels.
On the end there?
Yeah. Aren't those just beautiful? Now those refer back to the temple in the Old Testament where the angels guarded the entry into the sanctuary. And again, they're just there. And I think lots of people come up here to have communion and go back and probably don't even notice that they're here.
Well, I'm not surprised. Gosh.
Yeah, but it's there. It just enriches it. It just gives it texture and something really important. Now, on the altar itself, you might want to move all the way around where you can see better. You'll see there are features on it. I should have brought my stick. But you'll see that there are angels on either side there.
Right, this
see
one.
the angels.
Yep.
The six-winged angels, the seraphs, again, because this is the holiest part. You know, I mean, it's not the holiest part, it's part of the building, but it is the part where the holy mysteries are enacted. And they're on either side of the panel which depicts the Eucharist. So there's the chalice and the paten, but around them, the wheat and the grapes.
Why are they significant?
Well, the wheat for the bread,
Yes.
and the grapes for the wine. And so we're reminded that on that altar, that's where this ritual was enacted, and people would come up to make their communion. Now there are other things on there that are really even more difficult to spot.
Right.
So if you go to that end,
Yes.
okay, I'm not going to move that. You might be scrambling up and down, but you'll see here there's a little face.
Yes, there is.
Right, and across there's a lion.
Yep.
And if you go to the other side, there are two more.
What's the significance of those,
I'll
Vivian?
tell you. So that one is the beast, I think, and the next one is the eagle. Now, on the altar, those four images represent the Gospels. And what they did was, way back, we're going back to kind of the year 300, these images came to represent the individual Gospels, because it was a reference to the book of Revelation and also to Ezekiel. So the man, quite often they have wings, so people say, oh, it's an angel, but the man represents Matthew. Matthew, who was Jewish, his gospel explains the law, and that Jesus was the fulfillment of the law. So there's the man, who is the kind of king of creation, in a way. Then the next one there, you will see, is the lion. Now, if anybody has travelled to Italy and gone to Venice, you will have noticed in the piazza in front of St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice, there are these amazing lions on the top of those pillars. And the lion represents St. Mark, partly because the lion is the king of the meat-eating beasts.
Yes.
But it's very typical of the style of Mark. It's very brief and to the point, and just cracks along really fast. It's the shortest, but it has everything in it. And in that gospel, the word immediately is used frequently. One has a sense of the kind of the energy of the lion. And then on the other side, the first one we have there is the beast, or the ox.
And that's this one here?
No, a bit further across.
A bit further. Oh,
That's
this one.
it there, yeah.
Oh, here we go here.
No, beyond the angel.
Past the angel. Oh, the beast there.
The
Yes.
beast is, and it's because the beast is, as it were, the preeminent king of the grass-eating animals. So this is a kind of record of those people. And the last one is the eagle, which represents St. John. And the other thing about the ox, which represents St. Luke, is it's the kind of the work of the ox, the faithfulness, the delivery of goods, as it were. And the eagle was believed by the ancients to be able to fly and look straight into the sun. And the Gospel of Mark is a very poetic, very symbolic, wonderful, quite different. The other Gospels are very much more storied, as it were. The Gospel of Mark talks about who Jesus was philosophically and theologically. So those are the four Gospels who hold this together. There's another image here, and I'm going to the last one now, and that's the one in the very middle. If you can get to that, you might be interested to see that one.
And that's this one here.
Yep.
What does that look like to me?
And that one, you'll see, is a flower.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And the flower is, as it were, one flower inside the other. And that's exactly what it is. And that represents the Tudors, because it was under the Henry VIII that the Anglican Church came into being. Until then, all the churches were Roman Catholic.
Okay.
We know perfectly well that Henry VIII wanted to be removed from the Roman Church because they wouldn't give him a divorce, because he wanted to marry another young thing. But nevertheless, that is our history. But where does the Tudor rose come from? That's interesting, because in the time of Henry VI, the Great War of the Roses broke out, the Lancastrians and the Yorkers. And they fought for 100 years, on and off and on and off and on and off, for the legitimate ascendants to the throne. And the Lancastrians were white roses, and the Yorks were red roses. Eventually, when Henry VII returned from France and took on Richard III at the Battle of Boswell and killed him and defeated them and became king, he married somebody from the House of York, and he put the two roses together, and that became the rose that represented the Tudors. And it was in Tudor time that the Anglican history really came into its own and was formulated for the people of England. So the Church of England came into being then. We call ourselves the Anglican Church because we're not in England, but it's all the same church, and we also recognise the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yes, the history's fascinating.
Now, local history. Behind you, a candlestick. Now, that candlestick is in memory of one of the men who died in the Stanley Graham episode. I'm going to say I can't remember his name. Can you see it on there anyway?
Presented by his father.
Oh, right. We're getting there, aren't we?
Just fascinating.
At the height of the gold rush and the few years afterwards, there were as many as 15 Anglican churches in this area from Kumara to Ross. And of course, as people went off to other gold mines, those churches closed, which has been which I think was quite a traumatic experience for a lot of the people who had worshipped there. I know one of our present congregation has a particular affiliation to St. John's in Stafford.
Good.
And that's it. So what we do have, and I can show you that, because what happened is that they handed over, as it were, vessels and candlesticks and things so that they could be looked after.
So this is as the church is closed?
Yes, as they closed. So, let's just go into the vestry. I'm not even sure if they're in here. No, this is still being restored. But we have in the room where all the vessels are kept, we have candlesticks from St. Aidan's in Kofitarangi. We have various bits and pieces that have been handed over for use in what is significantly now the main church of this area. St. Aidan's and St. Columba in Kofitarangi is still consecrated church, but we really only manage to have a service there maybe once or twice a year.
Wow.
And if you turn around from here, excuse me, you see the memorials on the backs of the pews.
Yes.
Now those are memorials erected by family members to remember their loved ones, and they are all sorts. And you'll see that there's not a uniform size of the memorials.
Gosh,
And this is one of the things that we're hoping, that as we collect, as we raise the money, people might wish to contribute and put up a memorial
in the same sort of way.
In the same way for their loved ones.
That's a wonderful idea.
We've already had some people inquiring. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is.
I can go on, but I won't. I think you've got to do other things now, don't you?
Well, look, Reverend Vivian Habour.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
I didn't realise.
Well, that's the story. You're not alone. And it would be great when people, if people come in, if they want to walk around, the church is open. they can walk around and look at things and try. We will do a voice guide at some stage. That's what the idea is.
I'll look forward to it. And we'll catch you later.
Thanks. Thank you.